Hello, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're listening to this and at whatever time, you're very welcome. I'm here again with Alexandra Rigazzi-Tarling and myself, Lucia Guerin, and we have been doing a series for the last while where we're talking about the training that we do with the College of Sound Healing, of teaching sound healing practitioner with the voice. And we've done weekend 1, 2, and 3 of 5 weekends, and today we're going to talk about weekend 4. And weekend 4, we've 2 main tasks for this weekend. We do another treatment, which is a treatment on the subtle realm, which is a treatment on the chakras, and we teach that on one day, and then on the other day we review the basic treatment and also have an assessment of how our students are doing with that. So that's sort of the focus of that weekend. So I don't know, Alexandra, is there a part of that you'd like to explore a little bit more?
Well, just talking about the treatments in general, I often get asked, how do you work with your voice, with somebody? So, looking back at the part 2 weekend and the part 2 video, we showed a little clip of how we scan over the body. And we work very closely to the body. But like you said, at this point in the course, because we've worked from the physical, the etheric, and then we've gone to part 3 to the emotional body, part 4, now we're out in the subtle, the causal body. And at this point, we're literally standing in the energy field of the person. So we're actually not that close to the person. And so I think it's there's a sort of sensation of sounding within their energetic field. So we're working with the bija mantras, and we work each mantra for each chakra. But it's very much centering of the self. So by this point at part 4, we've really learned to breathe and to ground. We've done a lot of work on ourselves because, of course, once we're working with voice, we can't be working on ourselves. The energy is working through us. And then at part 4, there's really this feeling of standing within the client's field, obviously working with intention and directing the energy to the energy centers and so on, but really holding that space. At least, certainly that's how I feel, that we're taking everything we've learned at this point, and we are the instrument. We're channeling that healing energy for the person, but we are vibrating. So we're standing in the energy field, using our voice and then training hopefully the client to that place of wellness, or tuning, at least, helping them to tune. So it's because I think it's quite a strange concept, isn't it? So sound healing with the voice, it's easy with a gong, you know what you do with a gong, and with a bowl, you know what you do with a bowl, but how do you administer that sound to somebody?
Yeah.
So it is very much at this stage much a wider concept, really, isn't it? We're not just there over the body. We're really looking at the body as this huge, vast field of energy, and staying within that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the bija mantras, so we're working with very sacred mantras that and the point of these mantras is that we are sounding them, and as sounding the mantras, we're sounding the essence of each of the chakras. So the mantras, if anybody has, and we talk about the chakras as well, if it's a concept that you're not familiar with, we certainly go through what the chakras are. But in the center of each of the chakras is this symbol, the Sanskrit symbol, which are the bija mantras. So we're connecting with that as we're sounding each of the chakras through the bija mantras. And every bija mantra also connects with an element. So we've got the element of earth, water, fire, air, and space. And, if we think about the human being, or not only the human being, but the whole cosmos made up of these 5 elements. And as we tune into that the resonance of the 5 elements and begin to balance them within our bodies. And I also think within the universe, if we can really respect the quality of earth, if we can respect the quality of water, of fire, of air inside of us and all around us, then we become that balance, we become the cosmos, because we are the cosmos. So there's great power. This, you know, when I teach this, people are kind of going, oh, that's really simple. I don't know if my clients are really going, you know, because people fall in love with the previous one and they think that's great. And then they learn this one. It's like, it's just so, it's actually quite subtle.
Yeah.
As you said, we're standing back. We're not getting involved with the body at this point because we're working it much further, you know, at the much further outer realm. And yes, it is so powerful because there's a lot of silence in this one as well. So it's subtle, but really, really powerful. If we can affect things at the subtle realm, then that can also affect the emotional and mental realm, which can, of course, affect the physical realm. So working at this is really working in the deepest way. So it's, without doubt, it's my favorite weekend.
Well, also as well, I mean, just picking up on that, because when you're working at part two and you start scanning over the body and you sort of find something there and you think, oh, you know, I'm getting sensations here and clearly something's going on in the energy. And you might not fully understand what it is at that point because you're working near the physical body and perhaps the etheric. So this is the result of something that's been going on at a much deeper level. And then you work in the emotional body at part three. And of course, we're human. So that's usually a very active area. And then once we go out to the subtle body, I mean, for most people, they don't consider their subtle body ever. You might, deep meditation, have that connection with the subtle body, but certainly in the physical realm and the frequency that we work at this level, to be completely in touch with the causal realm is it's hard. You know,
Yeah, it's quite divine in
it's a
its
different,
as well.
yes. And that subtlety, I'm always students always comment on the subtlety of it. It really feels when they, for example, when they're receiving the treatment, they give and receive the treatments, how they feel like they're very aware when they're being treated, in that they actually feel like they're quite conscious. And it's not until they open their eyes and then talk and feedback after the treatment that they realize how deep they've gone. And they often we liken it to a theta state. So there's this feeling of, you know, you're there, you've got the practitioner working on you, you're aware of what's going on, yet it's a heightened awareness. And so suddenly, instead of being in this world where, you know, we're so encouraged to draw in all the time, suddenly we're in this beautifully expanded state. We're in touch with that field. And I think for me, I agree. It's one of my favorite parts because, you know, this work is, it's like nothing else. And that, you mentioned the silence as well. And I think throughout the course, this is a sound healing course, yet it could be a sound and silence healing course because the balance of that silence with the sound, it is so important. And that's another thing, isn't it? Just, I mean, for people to get used to the silence and that space that's created when you're working in the causal realm.
Absolutely, yeah. And people often, when people who receive this treatment often have that sense of timelessness. Like, how long have I been lying there? It could have been forever. It could have been 2 minutes. There's just the time sort of disappears in that space as well, because we're in that broader sense of time.
Yeah. No, it's quite different, isn't it, from everything else? And students also, you know, we encourage students to practice these sort of protocols, for want of a better word, this working with the Bija mantras for themselves. So when you're, you know, you can work this for your own practice. You could work this with a client just sounding together. You can work over the body. But that was the other thing, you know, people said, well, do I have to always just do these protocols, whatever it might be, parts three, the healing scales, the Bija mantras, do I have to do these protocols, you know, over someone, as it were, on the therapy couch? But actually you could quite easily work with these just sitting with someone in meditation and working together and sounding these. They're all of
and
this
on your own. I mean, they're just
exactly.
they're a gift that just keeps giving. Bija mantras will never let you down. They for me, they feel like this column of strength.
Yeah.
that when I sound the bija mantras, it feels like my body sits up, and I feel this just real inner scaffolding that's
Yes.
held and opened by them. They're just, yeah, so definitely they are a gift for the practitioner, for anybody who receives them. Yeah.
And it's taking us back, isn't it, to that what we talked about at part 1 and 2 regarding entrainment and sacred ratios and sacred geometry and these sacred sounds that, you know,
Mm.
gifted to humanity at the dawn of time. You know, these sounds
Yeah.
carry all of the energy that they have been used with through thousands of years, and we are sounding them here in this present moment, and therefore
Mm.
all of that energy and that intention that they've been used with is there and
Yeah.
available to us. And
Mm.
the body recognizes those sounds and recognizes that
Yeah. And
cosmic
yeah.
alignment. And like you said, it's that body
Mm.
said
Mm.
it wants to link into these. I mean, that's just a taster, isn't it, really, of how
Yeah.
it might work. But you know,
Yeah.
bodies recognize these sacred
Mm.
sounds, and we use these sacred sounds to tune us back to health, back to wellness.
Yeah.
Very,
And balance. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And reconnection to all that we are.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
yeah, that's just a taster of
as a
our.
taste, and we said we'd mention very briefly just the assessment element of the weekend, because certainly that's always something that seems to bring up a lot of let's say old stuff for people. Oh my goodness, there's a test, there's an assessment, and
Yeah, that pass and fail sense. Yeah.
exactly, and
Am I good enough? All that story
all of
comes up.
that stuff. And in a funny sort of way, I mean, certainly with the voice course, you know, the whole aspect of using your voice, we're always working with conditioning from all parts of life. You know, am I good enough? Am I sounding? Do I sound good enough? Is my sound acceptable? Am I acceptable? Will people want to listen to me? You know, all of these things that perhaps people have suppressed, you know, because they can't sound, and we're not
Yeah.
singing. This is a different course where sounding, we all have the right to sound. But I'd say at part 4, the assessment is a real time when extra stuff comes up to be dealt with, and it's a real clearing for people, because it's actually, we were saying, weren't we, before we came on the Zoom, you know, it's not about of course there is an element of having to pass it for, you know, the course is accredited.
Yeah, and I think that's an important element as well, Alexandra, that
Yeah,
there is this assessment where we are happy to let our students out to the world. So I
yeah,
think it's also knowing that if you're going to have a treatment from somebody trained by the College of Sound Healing, that they have had an assessment. So I think it's an important part from that side of things as
agree.
well.
No, I agree with you. I agree. And certainly that's, yes, it's a stamp of approval, isn't it? Our students have been through, you know, a lengthy training. They have
Yeah.
been assessed. They've done 36 case studies. They've, you know, they have to have first aid. They're insured. All of these things. Being a member of the College of Sound Healing, it's a
It's
big thing.
robust. Yeah.
It's a lot for them. And I agree. So all of that sort of building up to at part 4, and then this sense of actually, well, look, we're actually assessing you in the sense that we want you to step into that flow. And you
Mm.
can't step into that flow if you're afraid and you're, you know, you're in your left brain and you're thinking, oh, I've got to do all this. It's actually now let's just do what we're practicing. We're handing it over to the student, and everyone will have their own unique ways of sensing and working in the
Yes. Yeah.
body. And that's lovely, isn't it, for us to see? Because
It's wonderful. Yeah.
and you sort of look at people working with their body, their client body, you know, on that day, and you think, wow, you know, like a year ago, they might
Yeah.
not have even done anything like this. And the thing that
Yeah.
I would like to touch on is that I always end up saying to them, I'm not really teaching you anything. I'm reminding you of something you already know. People come into this work and they're drawn to it usually, but they come into it and it's like they've been doing it their whole life. They suddenly feel, they get into the energy field, and it's like they're home. They
Yes.
understand
Yeah.
I don't have to you know, of course we're teaching them, but there's an element of people just taking on like it's like done it their whole life. I'm sure you see that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it's really beautiful, and you see them coming into themselves even more, just being more who they are, even though we're teaching particular protocols, how that manifests with each treatment can be very different and with each person.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And there is something about that assessment as well, is that once it's complete, it's kind of a threshold moment when you're going, oh yeah, I am a sound healer. This does work and I'm doing it. And so there is sort of for the trainee, there is that sort of, oh yeah, I can let go of the doubts. So once
Definitely.
the assessment happens, something happens, or something acceptance happens as well. So yeah, it's a wonderful weekend. And of course, after the weekend, there's usually a chunk of time because people are completing all their case studies as well. So yeah, it's
Yes, because actually at the beginning, people often say, why is there such a gap between parts
yeah.
4 and 5? Can't we do it sooner? I'm like, you probably won't feel that way once you
I know. Yeah,
because they have also then after part 4 the extended essay to write as well, and that's a whole other story. But again, very much from an experiential,
yeah,
well,
absolutely.
not
Yeah,
an academic essay. We're
yeah.
looking to know
More
how.
often than not, yeah, I have people going, I think I've written too much. Do I need to take stuff out? Because once you start writing about what you know and what you're passionate about, the words just keep coming. So,
Exactly.
yeah, but telling people that is very different to when they actually sit down to do
Exactly.
it.
And also, you know, by the time you've got to part 4, you've got all of that experience of the training weekends, the case studies, your own practice to draw upon. It's very
Mm,
difficult to explain that to someone at part 1 when they haven't
yes.
gone through that journey. So it's, if anybody's listening now, we're just putting your minds at rest. Once you've gone through the journey, you have the experience, and
Yeah, and
that's
that's what you're
that's the
leaning on for that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
great.
I think we'll be back again at some point to talk about part 5. I think there's been
Yeah,
a lot of time lapse between part 3 and part 4.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, you know, we chat when when the universe directs us, don't we? So
yeah.
here
All,
we are.
all timed perfectly.
Exactly. So thank you very much for tuning in, and you can find out more about our work at www.collegeofsoundhealing.co.uk, and we have tutors running courses independently throughout the UK and Ireland, and you'll find lovely Lucia in Ireland, and you'll find me in West Sussex. And
Great.
you'll see our personal Instagram and Facebook feeds alongside the video. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you for
Yeah,
part.
thanks for listening.